we are going to do a very clean, polished eye look. So the entire thing today is about looking presentable and credible. So think in terms of like, you're gonna do a meeting. Throw me some scenarios that you have to meet with people live in person at a bank, right? And why is it important if they respect you and think that you're credible at a bank? You want their money. You want a loan, okay? What's another meeting that you guys go to in real life? Sponsor meetings. So if you have a brand and you need sponsorships for your brand, or vice versa, if you're a brand that's needing name recognition and you have to meet with a potential person that's gonna get your name out there, both ways that meeting's important for you to walk in looking credible, looking believable, looking the part for whatever you're doing. What's another meeting you guys go to? Any realtors in the house? And who's in any type of a commissioned sales type of business? Okay, big chunk of the room, when you walk into a meeting and you look the part, or you look like someone that they want to hand cash to, that's important. So you looking clean, polished, and credible is of the utmost importance. Now, let's talk about your ideal clients and what's appropriate. So what type of meetings do you guys have to go to as a mom? A teacher meeting? Do you want to walk in and have them think like, yeah, no wonder this kid acts a fool, his mom looks ridiculous? You know what I'm saying? Because it's on a subconscious level. People make judgments against you all day long. And it's human nature. They say, social scientists say that inside of 4 seconds, people are making unconscious decisions about you. It's not that they're a crappy person. It's not that you're a crappy person. It's just a bias of the mind. That's how our brains work. It's neuroscience. So when you walk in there looking polished and professional, that teacher already respects you so much more, and they're making up a story inside their head about who you are. They don't know you from Adam. They don't know if your house is actually clean. Maybe you just look like it is. And that can work to your advantage, okay? So what other kinds of meetings do you guys go to? A board meeting for what? Nursing, okay. How do you guys feel when you walk into a medical office even, or need to go in for treatment for something, and the nurse looks jacked up? You're like, get away from me with the drugs, keep that needle to yourself. Have you washed your hands today? Don't touch my family. So when the nurse or the doctor, the medical professional walks in and they're looking the part, you trust them more. Speaking of that, a big chunk of my career, I worked with Clinique. They have everyone behind the counter wear a white jacket. For the most part, it was just girls that knew how to put blush on you. But a subconscious decision was being made in that client's mind when they walked to the Clinique counter based on a jacket. We wore a white coat because people make an association between Clinique and being dermatologists. Not one person that I ever worked with at Clinique was a dermatologist, okay? It doesn't work like that. But they did it for the packaging. They did it for the appeal. They did it because the client was more likely to sit in that chair and trust the person based on a freaking jacket. When we're learning like a corporate polished look, I want you to keep in mind today, what type of meetings do you go to? Let's take it another step further. Have we talked on camera before? Majority of what I do in our office, I'm meeting with people over video. If you guys have a brand or you have any type of like need to talk to people who are across the country, I'm gonna give you a little tip. Talking to people via video chat instead of the phone is like the future. When you call someone, think about your cell phone. When you have an unknown number on this thing, who picks up? When someone tells you, I'd like to schedule a phone call with you, what do you feel inside? Ugh, it feels ugh. You're like, oh God, what are you gonna sell me, right? You don't wanna pick up the phone. Nobody wants a phone conversation about business. However, if you have a chance to connect with people over video chat, that is literally the direction that business is going. Larger corporations have been doing, video conference calls for years, but I'm talking now that we have things like Skype's been around forever, but now Zoom, you can record your meetings with your clients and send them a copy so that you guys both know what you talked about. Facebook video chat, that's pretty much my primary way of contacting my clients because I can see Lisa eye to eye. She knows that I'm smiling at her when I'm talking. She knows she has my full attention. Crystal and I know that we're connecting on a heart level. She can see me if I'm excited about her brand and getting choked up and crying. It's a whole different way of doing business, but when you look the part and you get on that video chat, the closing ratio is higher. You don't have to leave your office but the closing ratio goes up. So for those of you who have clients that are like not in your city, or you have a tight schedule and you're a mom, or you're trying to figure it out, how am I going to fit all this stuff in and make more money for my household, but not have to leave my kids? You put yourself together, pop on camera, and do your consultations over camera. This is the way to go. So before you get on camera, think about that. Think about the Clinique branding. Think about the fact that people trusted them more because they wore a sports coat, like a white doctor-looking coat. It's a different feel. When you do your makeup and you're keeping that person in mind that you're meeting with, you're considering your audience. So what's appropriate for me as a makeup artist and my audience might not be the same as what's appropriate for a nurse. I can go on camera with my clients and go full smoky eye sparkles every day, and they're gonna say, oh my God, I love your makeup. Nursing clients, not quite appropriate. So today's look, I want you to be forming in advance. When is it appropriate for you to look corporate? When is it appropriate for you to look polished? When is it appropriate for you to look professional and credible, and how can you use today to your advantage? Because I'm going to be teaching some things today that I've never taught in a live class before, and it's things that we actually use for red carpet, for celebrities, for getting like the minimal makeup type of a look, but also having high impact that drives people to be magnetized to you and keep eye contact. Who this is for? This is for someone who hates a lot of makeup. Do I have anyone in this room that's just like, oh, it feels like a mess? Awesome. This is for you. Is there anyone in here who feels like when they put makeup on, they look older? It accentuates aging. This is for you. Is there anyone in this room who sees those pictures of models and you're like, their skin is so glowy and fresh, I want that dewy look? This is for you. So this is the direction that we're going today. The emphasis for today's look is we want that nice clean brow. We want to get super lashy, and we're going to pop some color on the lips. Those are going to be the key features. So think lips and lashes, and the brows frame up the masterpiece. Everything else is going to be glowy, youthful, fresh, and not overdone. Keeping that in mind, we're going to go on to eyes, and can I have Abby Corcoran as my model? We're going to move into eyes. Okay, this is what we're going to need for this particular move. I want you to have out, for starters, your eye primer. That does come in chocolate and vanilla. Majority of the room is going to have vanilla for eye primer, chocolate's for a deeper skin tone. Grab your vanilla primer. You'll want to have a camouflage brush on hand as well. If you have the eye brush bundle, that's legit, but I'll walk you through what brush to use when, so no stress, just have your brushes available. And finally, your lash primer and mascara. So this entire eye look today, we're going to achieve it by using the contour palette. Now this is good for a couple different reasons. Number one, if you're a little bit of a newbie with makeup, it's gonna be easy. We're staying in the same palette all day long. Second, where are my travelers, jet setters, travel babes? Okay, if you are looking to decrease the weight in your suitcase, just take this palette on a trip. Yep, you can leave your 5 colors at home. This one can do a lot of things. Alrighty, so we are starting with the vanilla eye primer, and I have a concealer brush. Here we go. We're gonna slide underneath the brow. Now, do you remember before we had the break and we were tracing the top of the eyebrow and cleaning it up? I am treating this brush the same way. We're going underneath the brow and I'm cleaning it up. The fabulous thing about this is if you have not had your brows shaped in a hot minute, you can actually lay those brow hairs flat and make them disappear with the vanilla eye primer. Score. So go ahead and frame out underneath the brow. Take it all the way across, and you can feather it into the entire eyelid. It helps me to flip my brush like inverted, like it's kind of facing the floor, to get all the way down to the lash line. Okay. What you'll see on Abby is that I have from all the way to the outer corner, and I've taken underneath the brow, framed out underneath the brow, kind of erased anything that was too big, gave her a really nice arch. So if you naturally don't have an arch, you can totally put one in just by using your brush like a little pencil and erasing some of your brow. How fabulous is that? And I did take the primer all the way across and into the inner corner of the eye. So I took it in pretty far. So check out up here on the stage. Do you know when we went like a little eagle all the way across on the top of the brow? We're going to do that on the bottom too. And this is how you make sure that your eyebrows are at least sisters, not cousins. So you're looking for evenness, right? Here to here. You want a nice straight line. And this is where mine get goofy, because I have one eyebrow that dips way the freak down here. It starts really low, and one starts high. So if I have one that starts really low, I'm going to erase the bottom of that brow a little bit. Does that make sense? I heard someone go, huh, they had an aha. Okay, and then we're going to make sure and scoop underneath that brow, clean it up, give her some extra arch space. Yes, please, she says. Okay. Go ahead and pop in your vanilla eye primer the same way that I've got mine's on. And yes, you are going to have a line in the middle. No big deal. We'll get rid of it. But your goal here is to make sure that this line is equal. Like it's the same height on both eyebrows. It's all about the symmetry. We're going to learn more about that with lips this afternoon. Talk about giving someone a complex. So I studied makeup in Hollywood. They would have us do like a brick red, like a Merlot colored lip, full liner, full lip color, everything. They'd photograph our lips and blow it up like twice as big as that projector. Just our lips, not even the full face, just your lips. So if you had asymmetry to your face, like if one lip was bigger than the other, everyone knew. It was fantastic. So I learned some tricks about making my face look more even, because one side of my mouth dips lower than the other. You can see them in all of our videos. One of my eyes is higher than the other. One is open bigger than the other. So there's little things with symmetry, like this little trick right here. So I'm super happy with this. The brows look symmetrical. I'm going to go in between the brows. You could use either your blender, babe, or your fingertip and just soften this. That's going to give you two things. One, it's going to move a little bit of your primer up in between your brows to give you even more ombre. And then it's going to get rid of your little, eagle. So we're primed up. The whole idea behind your primer is that if you get creasing on your eyelids, it's going to minimize some of your creasing. And also whatever powder sticks to your primer first is going to give you the max color payoff. So if you have colors that you really, really want to see intensely, those are the colors that you want to hit your primer first. All right, so today's look for the eyes is literally just going to be 2 steps. It's going to be highlight and transition. So let's talk about highlights. Does anyone in this room know what qualifies as a highlight? Lighter than the color of your skin on your cheek. That's going to be a highlight shade. So in your highlight and contour palette, and look in the mirror, check it out. Tell me what color in your highlight and contour palette is lighter than like your skin on your cheek. Your top left-hand corner in your palette, so like this little guy right here, you're going to have either porcelain or vanilla there, top left-hand corner. That qualifies as a highlighter. on your face and on your eyes because it's lighter than the color of your cheek. What else could be used as a highlighter? So lighter than your cheek, but it has shimmer to it. She said sugar cakes. Perfect. Anything else? What's the sister product to sugar cakes? Sugar Crush. Okay. So is anyone going like, what is that? So illuminators. We're talking about things that bounce light off of the skin. When you're talking about your 6-color contour palette, the vanilla and porcelain colors, which are the lightest colors in your contour palette, they're matte. So just like when you pick paint, like for a wall in your house, there's mattes, there's satins, and there's glossy that bounce light. You have an option to be fully matte, which means it's going to be a flat color. It's not going to bounce a lot of light. It's just going to give you a nice, pretty flat base. That would be vanilla from your highlight and contour palette. That's a matte highlighter. If you like a little zhuzh, if you like a little sparkle, if you like a little bit of like light reflecting or anti-aging, I want you to maybe play with the concept of adding sugar cakes or sugar crush. So when we go in for highlight, I'm going to show you zones to put each one. So who in here prefers a matte look? So for you, I'm going to have you cover your entire lid space when we do this move with vanilla. I play with this all the time. Some days I just want to be totally matte because it's appropriate for me. So for the rest of you who like a little bit of like zhuzh and a little bit of sparkle, we're going to play with both your sugar cakes or sugar crush, your preference, and the vanilla from your highlight and contour palette. Now back to that point that I just made about whatever touches your primer first, it sticks the hardest and it shows up the most. There's a couple options here. You can coat your entire lid space in the vanilla from your highlight and contour palette. That's going to be your base. If you layer sugar cakes or sugar crush on top of that, it's not going to show up as much because the first layer was vanilla, which is a matte, and then you're just popping a little bit of an accent on top, but it doesn't stick as hard because it's got vanilla in between it and the primer. Versus if you want a lot of shimmer and you really almost want it to look like it's wet when light bounces off, you're going to skip putting vanilla from your contour palette on first, and you're going to go straight to sugar cakes and sugar crush. I'm going to grab my sugar cakes and sugar crush, and we're going to pop that on first. For those of you who love a lot of shimmer, we're going to do that protocol first. For those of you who do not, you can hold, and I'll show it to you, your moves, in the next probably minute or so. Okay, so sugar cakes and sugar crush look like this. They come in a container that has like a little dispenser so that when you travel, it stays super clean. Okay, so we're going to go in with an oval compress brush, and we are going to pat press into her primer. The zone that I'm working on Abby is underneath the arch of her brow. So we're going to do about the outer, let's say, half. Check out that freaking payoff. Because the sugar crush is touching a wet primer, so it's going to perform really, really reflective, like almost wet. It won't feel wet, it won't feel tacky, but it'll hold that type of a shimmer all day long. Let's talk career paths. So Abby does a lot with the public. But she's known, obviously, check out the jewelry, check out the hair. Like, she's known as being very much like a fashionista. So it's appropriate for her to pop on this level of shimmer and highlight to go to a meeting. People expect her to walk in glow, like glowing up, right? It's totally cool. So this is appropriate. We're going to do that on both eyes. Probably about the outer, let's call it outer 50%. And we're staying underneath the brow, and I'm covering about a half an inch below her brow. So starting at the brow, adding about a half an inch of highlight both sides. It's looking lovely. Oh, I love that color performance. It's so glowy and fresh. On camera, that's bouncing some light. Okay, little thing about the brain, because you know me, I love my neuroscience. So the way that we're wired, people typically are attracted to things that sparkle, they bounce light. That's what keeps people's attention. That's why our cell phones are created with all this technology to have like pop-ups all the time. So if your eyes have something reflective on them that's bouncing light, it's going to keep people's attention longer. And so the more that you can add pops of light or shimmer around your eye zone, the more eye contact you'll get. So if you don't feel like it's appropriate for you to wear that level of shimmer, the other place that I do want everyone to pop a little bit of highlight is right here in the inner corner of the eye. You can go in with either your precision crease brush, you can go in with a fluffy crease, and you want to go in pretty much the inner corner of your eye socket and deposit that color specifically around your tear duct. It's like you're pat pressing it right around the tear duct. Right, so right in this inner corner. I'm doing like a pat press motion. And you really can't overdo it with this. I had a mentor in Hollywood that she would come and check my work like 6 times. And every time that she came back to me, she would say, did you pop any shimmer in that inner corner? I'd be like, yeah, hang on. And I would add more. She'd walk around the room to all my peers and come back to me and she'd be like, just pop some more shimmer, honey. I would pack it in there. She'd come back around, just add a little bit more shimmer. She was one of the top makeup artists, and she said that's her like go-to move, is that inner corner pop of light. It keeps eye contact with people longer. So you want to be doing that for meetings or anytime that you're having like a face-to-face with people.
Even for your children.
Oh, and Abby said even for your children. We do hear that a lot, even from school teachers and moms. They say that their kids listen better when they use this move. Now, for those of you who feel like you don't like a lot of shimmer, just a smidge will be enough. You can do your vanilla from your highlight and contour palette, so your vanilla powder over the entire lid space, and then layer on Sugar Cakes or Sugar Crush in these zones. And for those of you who don't want any shimmer at all, we're just going to cover the entire lid space with vanilla. I like a lot of shimmer, and so does Abby. We've got her pops of illumination in both spots, underneath the brow and in the inner corner. Everywhere else that we have wet primer, I'm going to go ahead and smooth out if she has any creases at all in the primer, and we'll layer on the vanilla highlight powder from the 6-color contour palette everywhere else. I'll be using the oval compress brush to do that. So we have still wet primer on the lid space, so from her lash line up to approximately her crease, and everyone's crease is different. So if your eye doesn't look exactly like this, no big deal. And I'm also going to do this inner corner of the eye. So if we have shimmer out here underneath the brow and in the inner corner, all this zone in the inner, probably 30% of the brow, underneath the brow still had some available primer. We're going to cover that up. Don't forget to smooth out if you've got any creases too. Because the really fantastic thing is this primer, it stays damp until you put a powder on top of it. With the heat from your skin, or if you have an oily base to your skin to start with, what can happen is that your primer will start to gather in the creases of your eyes. So before you layer any powder on top, make sure all your creases are nice and smooth and you don't have any of your primer gathering and creasing. lovely. Give Abby a round of applause. All right, give me some aha moments. What about that was new for you? Sarah said that inverting her camouflage brush and making the bristles point towards the floor helped her to get all the way down to her lash line with her primer. That also works with eyeshadow as well. So taking your brush and flipping it like bristles down helps you get way down to your lash line. Does anyone struggle with that? Like you open your eye and you've got a gap between your lashes and where everything starts? There's your trick. Give me another aha. Taking your cleanup across the bridge of the nose, that gives you symmetry in the brows. Was that new for anybody else? So helpful. So this is a new thing. Typically what we teach is to have something in between. So we would take the eyelid, pop on primer, put on like a secondary color. So there's always a barrier in between the primer, which is the vanilla eye primer, and sugar cakes underneath the brown in the inner corner. And I have recently discovered, especially because I love the look that you have on like younger models, when you watch runway shows and they recap the red carpet and those girls look so glowy, I realized that taking mineral icing sugar, so that would be your sugar crush, your sugar cakes, and some new things that we have for spring, and popping them directly onto wet primer or directly on top of your foundation, it gives you a ton more shimmer payoff. So that was new for someone who has been here 4 or 5 times. Awesome. Anyone else have an aha moment? Michelle said using the primer to get an arch. That's helpful, right? Clean up that arch, get rid of the little baby hairs. We're gonna move into transition. So we know that highlight means what? Give me some qualifiers that make something a highlight. Lighter than the skin, especially on your cheek. What else qualifies as a highlighter? Reflective, so your sugar cakes, your sugar crush, those are both highlighters as well, as long as they're lighter than your cheek. All right, so we're gonna do a couple different eye shapes. I'm gonna work with someone that has a shape that's similar to mine. All right, let's talk about positioning of your crease. This is always a question for people, so here we go. Eyes open, the crease that's available, you can see a fold in her skin right here, right? That's considered your crease. So side by side, if we're buddies, you can see that my crease is a lot higher, right? So I have more visible lid space. She said, and I have a lazy eye.
So fix it. That's why I'm here.
So fix it. Okay.
I was like
In Jesus' name. I am not him. All right. We're going to grab a precision crease brush. It's one of the smaller of your eye brushes. It looks like this. It has like a little bit of a small point to it. It's probably the second largest brush except for your brow liner brush. The move that I'm going to have you do is we're going to take the brush, you'll tilt your head back, and I'll show this to you on a couple different people. I'm going to pat across the lid space and make sure that we don't have any creasing at all in the eyelid or in the primer. And the tip of my brush is way up in the air, so it gives me better access and a better angle. I'm going to take Grayish from the contour palette and trace above her natural crease. So you're touching the crease and going just above it, and take it about halfway across. Now, if you don't have visible crease, like if you have a monolid or more of an Asian eye, I want you to hold and not do this move just yet, okay? If you can see visible eyelid space and their eyes open, they can do this move. If they have more of a monolid or like a droopier eyelid, have them hold. So what we're seeing here is because she's got visible eyelid space that's covered in vanilla, it looks kind of like the whole eyelid should be light, right? And then from her crease and then up maybe a quarter to a half an inch, we've put in grayish. That's your goal for this move. Pro tips, I'm going to have you tilt your head back and look down into your mirror because that's going to show you if you have any creasing in your lid. I want you to smooth it out. And you'll also be able to see where the crease of your eye is naturally, and you'll be able to stay above it better. Now our goal with this is to look corporate, polished, and professional. So we're using grayish. That's considered a transition color. Anytime you hear me say transition shade, I want you to imagine light tan, light brown, light gray, anything that you could find like a pebble that color on the beach. Those are good qualifiers for a transition color. Could I find a rock that color on the beach? It might be a transition color. So inside of your 6-color contour palette, take a look. Look for colors that are matte, no shine to them, and they look like a rock on the beach. There's 2 in there. Which ones? Butterscotch and grayish. So those are your 2 transition colors in that palette. Depending on what you prefer, you can totally use butterscotch for this move. You can mix grayish and butterscotch depending on whether you have like a warmer skin type or you just prefer those types of shades. So you have some options here. So next move, I want you to grab this little guy right here. Is one of my favorites. It's called the Color Wash Genius. If you don't have this brush, you're going to grab your micro buffer brush. It's about the same size and it has a flatter head to it. Now we're going to go into blending. Most of the time the difference between someone who's great at makeup versus someone who's kind of a novice is just the blending skill. And unfortunately, all of us have very different dexterity. I'm an artist by nature, so that's super duper easy for me. However, I've had clients that I have worked with for 2 years even, and they hated smoky eye because they felt like they sucked at it. They're like, I can never get mine to look like yours. I'm frustrated. And hearing a client say that has been through a couple courses, I'm like, we have to find a solution. So we launched these 2 brushes. These 2 brushes, they're very similar. Some of you might have one that has a flat top to it. Some have like a rounded top. They're similar in size and they are amazing for blending. If you suck at blending, this is your best friend in the world. You have on one end taller bristles and one end has shorter bristles. What I like to do is I treat this like it's a pencil and the shortest bristles are closest to the nose. And you're going to start in the outer corner, and you guys all remember using like an eraser in class, right? You make a mistake on your paper, you're going to make an eraser motion. Everybody hold up your brush and pretend you're erasing on a paper. It's a brisk motion. It's from your fingers, not from your wrist. Okay? So eraser motion with your fingers. You're not moving your whole elbow, right? It's gentle. Eraser motion, okay? That's what I want. Going across your grayish, and if it helps you, I kind of pop my fingertips here to hold the skin in place. Turn this way for me, babes. Just so that you're not tugging and pulling on your eye a whole bunch. And I'm doing an eraser motion from the outer corner towards the center. And I'm softening my grayish into my highlighter. When you get into the inner edge, you can use kind of the tip of the brush, like the very tallest bristles, and just kind of aim towards the inner corner of the brow. And then we'll check our work. So from side to side, that's the blended versus unblended. It's just one simple move, one incredible brush, but it makes a huge difference between polished, unfinished. This is typically when I go to the grocery store and I check out the makeup that's walking around, you know. Notice I said the makeup. I'm not making a judgment against a person. I'm just checking out the makeup. This is what I see at the grocery store. This is what happens when you go into working on photo shoots, right? It's a more polished look. It's a couple extra seconds, but it's that softening that makes you look more credible. It's more of a corporate appeal, It's more business. So same thing on this side. Shortest bristles are going to be closest to the nose. Longer bristles are out here. And I'm going back and forth and just like, it's kind of like a buffer motion, like you're buffing the color, or an eraser. Back and forth motion. And notice I'm not bringing it down into the inner corner of the eye. You don't want to do that because you've got all that highlight in there. We don't want to cover it. So instead, it's like you're climbing up a hill and you're connecting with the inner corner of the brow. Does that make sense? A little gorgeousness going on here. Okay. I love it. And this is one of those moves where I just kind of hang out there until it makes sense. Like I don't leave from blending until both sides look symmetrical, until it looks like, okay, this is soft, it's polished, it looks right. Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause. I need someone that has monolid or what they consider like a droopy eyelid. So we're gonna address a completely different eye shape. So when you look in the mirror, if you cannot see visible lid space when your eyes are open, there's a little bit of a different approach for you, and I want to cover that. So Miss Peggy, good to see you, honey. How old are you?
57.
She's 57 and sexy. Why did you come today?
Because I want to learn to be beautiful.
You were already beautiful. Even more beautiful.
Yeah.
See, and this is the fun thing about makeup. Every single person in here walked in beautiful. Like everyone is beautiful. You know what I'm saying? My husband made this incredible comment in the last month or so. And I think I took it different than what the author meant it to say. He said, give anyone a mask and they will show you who they truly are. So on a sinister level, give some people a mask and they'll go rob a store. Give some people a mask and their real intentions will come out because you can't see their face. And that's, I think, what the author meant. How I took it was, have you ever seen a Broadway performance? Have you ever seen an opera? When people get into character and they get to feel and act out what's really on the inside, some of their best brilliance comes forward. So let's take that into the relationship arena. When you feel on the outside as sexy and confident as you want to feel on the inside, things sparkle a little bit differently. Whether that's with your partner, whether that's going into like a business meeting. Often I see when women are going to brand themselves for business, I see that there's a disconnect. They're going, I want to blow up my business. I want to be credible. I want to look appealing. I want to be sexy for my partner. But there's this disconnect because they have a picture in their head of what they kind of think they want to look like, or they have a picture in their head of what Hollywood has programmed them forever, like this is what beauty is, you know? So the disconnect is they don't appreciate their true beauty of who they are, right? And since they don't think that they look the part, they don't act the part. They don't walk into the meeting with their shoulders back. They don't walk in ready to win. They don't walk in to give their best. They walk in going like, I don't think I'm the one. I don't look like I'm the one. Do you see? And that's in relationships with your spouse, with your friends. You might, like feel like the ugly one in the group. I know, I always did. I had this thing on the inside. I had a picture of a future state. I had a picture of an outcome. I had a picture of a woman. I'm gonna cry. Yeah. And when I could look like it, I could act like it. It's funny. People make these judgments against makeup, and they go like, oh, well, she needs a mask. So freaking what? So what if you need something to wear on your face or something to accentuate who you already are so that you can look on the outside the way that you always felt on the inside? You know this. Like from a little kid, you don't dream of losing. You dream of winning, right? It's in there. That beautiful, that powerful, it's in there. So when we put on something that brings it out, if that's your mask, then it is like the most sparkliest, most illuminated, most sexiest Mardi Gras mask you've ever seen in your life. So that whole thing about like, oh, that person needs a mask, they need makeup, they must not have confidence if they have to wear makeup. No, they learned to look the part of what they already knew that they were. Like, is there anyone in this room who gets that vibe sometimes? You're like, I don't think I look the part. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get the client. I'm not going to get the booking. I'm not going to get the relationship. I'm not going to get the attention. I'm going to go out with my girlfriends. And it's not going to be me this time. It's never me. Does anyone like resonate? I know I'm not the only one. If learning something about makeup can empower you to like act the way that you would if you look the part, then let's freaking do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I'm here.
So let's go with a different eye shape. Our goal here is that we want to maximize the space that we do have there that's visible. Our goal here is we don't want to cover up her highlight. We've got to keep that open and available. If you take your contour color up too far, you're going to get rid of that, and then it's just going to look too dark. Sometimes when women do their makeup, they go, I look like I have a black eye, and I'm going, it's because you eliminated your highlights. You got to keep that highlight zone there. So for Peggy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the lid a little bit, and I'm going to go along, it's called like your, I guess you could call it your brow bone. And I'm going to stay underneath her brow bone and pop in a little bit of our transition shade. So I'm using Grayish. Now when I let go, she still does have all that highlight, but now there's a little bit more definition going on in here. And when we blend, I'm just going to bring it up a little tiny bit. So we're not losing a bunch of that brow bone. I can go a little bit higher. Go ahead and close your eyes. So I can come up maybe an eighth or a quarter of an inch higher. Okay, let's check. Awesome. I'm going to go just a smidge higher. And then we have a trick for doing an eye lift as well. So we're going to do that for Peggy as well. Okay. So if you have this type of a lid, you want to take it slow. Just add a little bit of your transition. Take a step back, look in the mirror, check it out, see if it's high enough, and then add more as needed. Okay, can you guys see her transition color on this side? Okay, we're going to go in and blend it, but because she has less lid space to work with, I'm not going to go into a large blending brush. So the two blending brushes that I showed you on someone that had more lid space available, they were the Color Wash Genius and the Micro Buffer. But because we don't want to cover up Peggy's available highlight space, I'm not going to use a big brush like this to blend because we're going to end up overlapping and taking over that highlight. We have a brush that's kind of in between sizes, and it is the Fluffy Crease brush. It's just a step bigger than the Precision Crease. So we've got Precision Crease, Fluffy Crease. Fluffy Crease is what we want to use to blend. So same motion, it's like that eraser, that back and forth motion. And I'm going from the outer corner towards the center, with my goal being that I don't want to overlap really high on her highlight. I still need her highlight color to be there. I'm taking the Precision Crease brush and a little bit of Grayish, and I'm going to go underneath her brow bone and hug that bone. About halfway across. For blending, because I don't want to cover all this pretty highlight up here, we're going to go into a fluffy crease brush. And it's the back and forth motion, kind of like you're doing an eraser. But keep control of it. What I don't want is I don't want your brush going like this by accident and covering up all the highlight. So you want to stay nice and close to that brow bone, go back and forth, and just blend until that color starts melting and just becoming a really pretty transition. No harsh lines anywhere. Great, then check for symmetry. What do you guys think? Super pretty, right? Okay, it looks way more open. The key for this is if you have deeper set eyes, which Peggy has, it's advantageous to her to have a light color on her eyelid because whenever she's looking down, if she's reading, if she's seeing a cell phone or something like that, looking at her computer, anytime that she's not looking at her audience, her eyelid, look down at my hand, her eyelid is still nice and light, so you see dimension in the eye. But then when she's looking at the audience, she still has highlight in her inner corner in here, nice amount of highlight out here underneath the brow, so it doesn't look like that like black eye type of a look. It's just a little bit of dimension. That's our goal. Now,
Can I say something?
yeah,
I'm glad that you said the bone,
yes,
because I kept looking at my creases and I have like 3.
yeah, yeah,
Because they're so droopy. So the bone really helped.
yes. That's
For
great
something to follow.
feedback. Yes. Was that helpful feedback for you guys? Now, we're going to move into another part of this. Doesn't matter what your eye shape is, I want everyone to do this. Take your precision crease brush, load a little bit of your grayish on there. I'm going to take grayish and I'm going to use it like a little eyeliner underneath the eye. So when you're talking business, like a corporate, really clean, polished look, sometimes it's not appropriate to have like black eyeliner on. You know your audience. You got to think, who are you talking to? Who are you meeting with? And are they going to appreciate you having black eyeliner on, or do they want a more subtle professional look? Always be considering the audience. So we're taking some grayish, and I'm going to hug underneath her lash line about 2/3 of the way across from the outer corner towards the center. And that's going to give you almost like a thicker lash line on the bottom without wearing eyeliner. So always considering your audience. Always, always, always. Okay, so I have Gentle Eye Makeup Remover. We gave everyone a wipe so that if you don't have this yet, you still have a tool to work with. And here's the thing about the eye lift. We want to clean up the under eye and be ready for the moves. So here's the deal with Peggy. When I was blending, I brought a lot of that transition way down into this corner. Can you see it right there? And it's pulling her eye down. It's kind of like aging her. I make this mistake on my own self all the time, so it doesn't really matter the age. This can happen to anyone. It's just over blending and blending down too far. So we're going to clean that up. I want you to have your makeup remover wipe available. I kind of fold it in half and use like a hard edge on it. You're going to swipe underneath the eye and make sure that if you have any shadow fall from when you did your liner underneath the eye, that you're lifting that up, getting it off of there. And then out here in this corner, I want you to lift and erase. You want to have like a seamless line that's going from your bottom lash line and getting rid of anything that's down too far. So we're just going to erase that with makeup remover. Gives a really pretty lift. Okay, can you guys see the difference now? We'll do the same thing on the other side. If you couldn't see it in the camera, we're just gonna get rid of anything that's like any transition that's down too far. We're gonna get rid of that and clean up any shadow fall. She said that feels so good. Amazing. There we go. It's beautiful. All right, ladies, feedback. What were your aha moments? So the comment was she's never used butterscotch as her transition before, and she's got blue eyes. So butterscotch having that gold base is going to make that blue eye pop even more. More feedback. What were your aha moments? So her comment was gradually just adding a little bit more, like with Peggy. We hugged underneath her brow bone, took a look, eyes open and closed to see is it appropriate to add more or go higher, instead of just smashing a bunch on there and hoping it'll blend. Okay, what else? What else have we got? Aha moments. So Susan said it's the cleanup at the end. She's been trying to figure out how to do that for weeks. What part of it were you trying to figure out? Was it getting rid of the shadow fall or the over blending? So getting rid of any droopiness on the outer edge, we're doing that by just cleaning up out here and making sure that nothing is going out past like the brow. So if you turn Peggy this way, the end of her brow is like right here. And if we were to draw a line, let me grab this will help. This will really help. If I grab a brush, and I'm gonna make it like a pretend line between the outer corner of her brow to like the under part of her eye, that's what we're erasing. Anything that would be underneath this brush is what we're erasing. Because before she had a bunch of shadow like way down in here and it was pulling the eye down. So by getting rid of that, we're gonna be able to give her a lift. When we go in with like foundation and concealer, we can lift that even more dramatically. Let's give Peggy a round of applause. Can I have you come up? I wanna show this on one more eye type because we have a lot of clients who have like an almond-shaped eye. They have more of a monolid. So we're gonna work with more of like a monolid or an Asian eye type, and I'm gonna give you a hack. Are we ready? Who thinks that they have like droopy eyes? Or you feel like you're like, okay, I don't have a whole lot of visible eyelid space to work with. So I'm gonna give you a hack for that. It's gonna be super, super helpful. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the false illusion of a crease. How fun is that? So if you feel like your crease is way down low and you want it higher, you can actually position your crease where you want it to be. So we call this, like if you're working on an Asian eye or someone that has a very like flat or monolid, that can really be any ethnicity, but you can put a crease in and fake the crease. So I want to show this hack to you if you're someone who feels like you don't have any visible eyelid space and you want your crease to go up higher, you can position it where you want it to be. She does have visible eyelid space. So when her eyes are open, you can see she does have, like she's got her lash line, and she's got maybe like a ½ an inch or so of visible eyelid space, quarter to a half, depending on how open her eye is. So technically we would call this zone right here where the skin folds, technically we would call that the crease. But if she wants more space there, we're gonna go even higher. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit of chocolate because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. I'm gonna put in a crease higher. You can do this with a precision crease brush. You can do this with your brow liner brush. And regardless of where your natural fold or natural crease is, you just make your own crease.
Now, are you just using chocolate because of her skin tone, or would you?
Combo. I want you guys to be able to really see it. So I'm going about halfway across, and then we'll blend this in a second. A little more than halfway. Let's go 2/3. And I'm gonna also V it a little bit and connect with the top lash line. So you get like a sideways V. Although her natural crease is here, I'm gonna highlight on top of that and make it pop forward. And we're gonna give her more eyelid space. So with blending, we'll go in with a fluffy crease brush and kind of soften and blend this out. And because we started higher than her natural like fold of her eye, will create the false illusion, especially when she's like on camera or standing further away from someone. They're going to feel like her eyelid is even bigger than it is. This is seen a ton when you're working on someone who's like, say, like Japanese or Chinese, and they're like, I don't really have a lot of eyelid space. I'm like, we can fix that. Don't worry about it. So I'm adding in a little bit of primer, and then we'll pop some vanilla right on top. That gives her the illusion of a larger eyelid. Is that helpful for anyone who feels like they have droopy eyelids or the monolid? So you don't have to go with your natural crease. If you're like, no, like my fold is so low, like I don't want to follow that line, you can make your own line. Takes a couple days of practice, but just keep this in your back pocket for when you want to make your eyelid look bigger than it really is. Shall we do the other side? Okay, girlfriend. This is all video recorded. You're going to get a copy of it because I want to see you do this for sure. Okay. She says, okay. Yes. So outer corner, go a little bit more than halfway across. What brush am I going to blend with? Precision Crease is what's putting it on. What do I want to blend it with? Fluffy Crease, okay? And I'm also going to make it like a sideways V. So I want to connect with her top lash line. So you get kind of like a V in the corner. Do you see the V? A little sideways. Some people see it, they call it a C. Some people call it a V. Doesn't really matter as long as you can see that it goes like this and then wraps around to the lash line. We'll blend with Fluffy Crease and then re-highlight the middle of her eyelid to make it nice and big. So if you have more of that droopier type of an eyelid or a monolid, or you feel like you don't have a lot of visible lid space, I want you to give this a go, either today or tomorrow. So adding in a little bit more primer to brighten that lid. And then what was my next move? Shout it out. Vanilla highlighter from the 6 color contour palette. And there we go. Amazing. Everyone give Peace a round of applause. Gotta love it. Amazing.